So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact time management system I created that allowed me to break through the 100K per month barrier, the 300K per month barrier, and will enable me to break through the $1 million per month barrier. So there's truly one reason why you're watching this video. It's probably to make more money, number one, and you probably would like to work less. So the way that we do that, it's a simple math formula. It's just we need to increase our dollar per hour. Just how many dollars we make for hours we work. To do that is we have to stop doing menial low leverage tasks. So this is what my calendar used to look like. This is an example of low leverage opportunities. So in here, I did nothing but low leverage things, which made me stressed because I feel like I wasn't making progress and I was not very happy, because when you don't make progress, you definitely aren't going to be happy. And what I did is now I've created my calendar to look like this, where I have very few repeatable obligations and I'm very much in control of my days. I'm no longer answering to other people and to small menial things. So I literally was able to stop doing 90% of the old tasks on my old calendar because they're all low leverage. It's very, very important. And if you want to make more per hour, you must do higher dollar per hour tasks. Because if you do $5 an hour tasks, you will make $5 an hour. And like one more caveat here is I was capped. At this point in time, we were capped around 150 to 200K per month. And once I made my calendar look like this, we popped and we had our biggest month ever, over 500K. So anyways, that is that. And there's a couple things I needed to learn about business and just about tasks in general before I could really even make this change. So the first thing I had to learn is that there's two types of tasks. There are repeatable tasks and there are tasks that are changing. That's what I've determined. So repeatable tasks are things that you do to maintain your business, and it's more so like working in the business. Changing tasks are things you do to grow the business. They're always evolving. So basically, what are repeatable tasks? Repeatable tasks are follow-up calls, daily huddles, trainings, etc. Things that are working in the business. In general, you do these at the end of your day because that's when your brain power is the least, and these things you can do over and over again on clockwork. You're constantly auditing these tasks and asking yourself the question, is this my highest value activity? How do we audit these tasks and why? Well, why do we audit the tasks? Well, one, over time, your tasks become much less valuable as you make more money. So something that was valuable for you a year ago may not be valuable for you today. So at one point, I guarantee you sending texts on a launch control campaign was super valuable at one point. Now you can never probably even imagine sending that. So that's why we have to audit this. I do this almost every single month, and I'm always changing the bottom percent of my task. So first thing I do is I grade all the tasks I do on a scale of 0 to 3 in terms of revenue generation. 0 being no rev generated, 3 being the most. So a lot of you giving offers to sellers is probably a very high value task, or managing your sales team, etc. Basically what we want to do, the first thing we want to do is we want to delegate everything that's a 0 and a 1 revenue generating. If you have no 0s and 1s, you're doing great, then delegate the 2s. Or make the 2s more valuable, or make the 3s more valuable. You're gonna double down on what you're best at. Once we do that, we have now optimized our repeatable task. And that's very, very important. We want to remove as many of those off our calendar as possible and make them as efficient as possible. So sometimes it requires hiring an assistant, etc. That's really important. The other piece is changing tasks. This is actually what's going to make you the most money, is being able to work on things like implementing new lead channels, opening a new market, onboarding new employees, etc. Whatever it is, you're forwarding a new way to release the biggest bottleneck in your business so that you can grow. In general, I start my days with changing tasks because they are the highest leverage that are going to make me the most money. So basically the way that these are determined, like what changing tasks should I be doing, is it's based on the theory of constraints. The theory of constraints just means that at one point in time, there's only one thing holding you back from growth. So essentially, if you need more leads to grow, because every other part of your business is perfect, then your constraint is leads. If you have too many leads and you can't convert them to appointments, then your constraint is appointments. If you have too many appointments and you can't convert them to contracts, then you have too many appointments. Then basically you need to work on your closing, your sales team, right? You can do all that. I think you get the gist, right? But the way that changing tasks work is that you should focus on nothing other than the number one piece of the constraint. So if your constraint is you need more appointments, do nothing than get more appointments. That's it. It's your only job. So your calendar should basically be repeatable tasks and the number one constraint. That's it. That's important. So we're optimizing to remove as little repeatable tasks working the business and to get as many changing tasks as possible because these are high leverage. How do we do this? So I use Google Calendar and I use a notepad. Those are the two tools that I use to keep myself accountable to the activities that I need to do. Here's my current calendar setup. So as you can see, I need to remind myself of my 80-20. This is a very good reminder. I have my meetings all on Monday. Have a couple one-on-one calls that I do that I'm phasing off my calendar. So I'm going to get a few hours back per week. And then I just have a couple other calls that are basic. And I have like a meeting where I meet one of my buddies for coffee because he has another amazing business. And that's really it. So I plan out my reoccurring things and I have tons of white space for the changing task. Now, I will say the meetings are the easy part because those you just click on a link and you show up on time. The blank space is the hard part because a lot of stuff happens when you have free time. And that's what the remaining piece of this video is going to be about. It's going to be about how you get the most out of your free time so that you become a higher level operator. So why is this blank space so hard? Well, the reason it's so hard is because this is what an entrepreneur looks like, is you have a million things to do, you have people handing you all kinds of stuff, and it's hard to pick which thing to do. That's why we have the theory of constraints. But I do understand that this is what it feels like, is you're stressed, you're like, there's a million directions I should do, and I don't know which one to pick, I feel like I'm drowning. And that's just what the day-to-day does to you, is when you're there, shit's just going everywhere, man, let's be honest. And that's where the notepad comes in. So the calendar basically tracks all my stuff that I have to do. And the notepad tells me exactly what task I'm supposed to complete. So basically, here's my notepad from yesterday. So I have my task, my notes, things I've learned, etc. And then I rip this page off. So this page is now gone. And then I would go down and write out my to-dos with the pen. 1, 2, 3. Once I write out my 3 to-dos, when my blank space on my calendar comes up, which is here, there's a lot of blank space, I then look at my notepad. I said, okay, this is the first one I do. That's number 1. I do it. All right, sweet. I did it. I still have more time. Let's do number 2. I do it, and then I move on. Boom. And I just repeat that over and over again. And that's the process. It's really simple, but it gets convoluted because there's a lot of distractions. And that's understandable. Distractions cause what's called switch tasking. And studies have shown that it takes about 23 minutes to redirect your focus back to the task you're doing after getting distracted. So if you do the math, every single time you get distracted, you lose about half hour. So that's a pretty sizable amount of time, especially if your time is worth $1,000 an hour. That's $500 that you're just burning by getting distracted. So we need to reduce that. So what I recommend and what I do whenever I'm basically wasting time, I track my time all day long. Every minute by minute on my calendar, I track and review what I did. So I track my time for a month straight and realize I spent about 2 to 3 hours per day doing nothing. And that's because I was switch tasking due to the following time wasters. So what is a time waster? Time wasters are things that cause you to lose focus on what you're actually doing. Because again, the whole time our day, like what we're doing the entire day, is focusing on those changing tasks, that number one constraint that is going to grow our business if it's solved. So if we got more leads, we make more money. If we hire this guy, we make more money. If we get more appointments, we make more money, etc. That's what our day needs to revolve around. Because when you do that, you leg up huge. So here's some examples. Team messages. You probably get, hey, this is super urgent. I need help right now. Messages all the time. And you hop in. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can handle that to make that more effective. Phones. Well, your phone probably causes you a lot of time. Have you ever looked at your screen time? But I've definitely picked up my phone and been on TikTok quite often. So we got to make sure we remove that. Email. We obviously all hate this place. Meetings. Ever waste an hour in a pointless meeting or a call? Of course, everyone has. Creative avoidance. This is a big one. Not just not doing the task that needs to be done. And typically creative avoidance looks like one of these 4 activities. You call a buddy who you haven't talked to in hours or months, not hours. You might call a buddy who you haven't talked to in hours, but definitely talk to an old friend, call your dad, call your mom, call your girlfriend, whatever. Just waste the time. It all happens to us. Go on a walk, whatever. Or there's not enough time for the task to get done. You're Mr. 98%. I know that's been me as well. It's also my dad. He remodeled our basement. It's still not done. It's been 10 years. But anyways, first things first is we must identify our time wasters. What gets measured gets improved. This was quoted by someone rich, I'm sure. This is my calendar from a day when I used to review my day because I was not making as much money as I wanted to. So here's my day. Started at 6:30 and it ended at 8:15. Obviously, some of this is gym, some of this is leisure, but this is what I did during my day. And if you want to track your time, you need to track every single moment. So I tracked the entire time. Blank space is when I literally just did absolutely nothing. I just stared at a wall. Because there's actually like a pretty good Andrew Huberman podcast talking about 17-minute meditations that reactivate your focus. So that's like an example of that. I actually didn't do that twice in the day, but that is sometimes what happens. So anyways, when my calendar looked like this, I was doing way too much low leverage work, which means I was not making as much money as I wanted to be making. So today, as you can see on my calendar, I literally do 10% of the same tasks on this Google Calendar. I only do like a couple. It's like quarterly planning and that kind of stuff. Almost nothing. And I only know the things that don't work is because I'm reviewing them. So like I said, you need to make sure you're reviewing your time every single day. Do it for a week, for a month straight, and review every single day what you could have done better, and then keep yourself disciplined. That's what it takes to be great. If you want to be the 1%, you got to do things that the 1% does. You can't do what everyone else does. So recap, we need to track and plan for our calendar. That's how we do it. We track and we plan our day. Then our notepads for accountability and simplicity. Because if all this stuff's going everywhere, we need to look in one place and see one item. There's a really good quote by Tom Bilyeu, the founder of Quest. His podcast is Impact Theory. He said, if you don't know what you're doing in the next 15 seconds of free time, then you're not clear enough on your goals. So that's why you need to have a notepad right there. So if you're not sure what to do, you look right there and it tells you. You don't have to think. We need to optimize for not thinking because we need to think when we need to solve hard problems. All right. Team messages. What are the rules for team messages? We need to funnel all messaging to one location. So everyone who talks to me when it comes to business talks to me during Slack or they talk to me in Discord. Those are the two places that it goes. And that's because two different teams, the way it's set up, blah, blah, blah. Most of you are just going to have it in one place. Your team's going to hit you up in Slack or Discord, one of the two. Their rules are they need to call me if it's urgent. And I do train them on what is urgent and what is not over time. But they call me if it's urgent. They text me if it's not. You should be getting text most of the time. You should only be getting calls if the way I define urgent is if it's going to prevent us from making money if I don't answer it right now. We lose money if we don't answer it right now. Most time that's not true. But if a deal's falling through and it's like, hey, if you don't answer this and help me solve this, like they're on the phone, like we're not getting this deal, that's urgent. Text otherwise, pretty much. Don't send me voice memos, send me bullet points, problem solution. I reply with voice memos because it takes a lot less time. And then when they text me, they need to send me their problem with their solution. This allows me to know if they've already thought about their problem, and I can quickly diagnose if their solution is good or not. Pretty much, if they send me the problem and they send me the solution, I can ask them another question that I'll go through later on how they can fix that and make it quicker. But the main piece of this is to funnel all your communication to one spot, have a way that it comes in. So basically my phone ring, or they call me on Discord or on Slack. So my computer screen pops up. It means it's urgent. I'm going to answer it every single time. If they text me, again, they're only texting me on Discord or on Slack, and that's going to pop up. It's not going to pop up on my computer. I have a certain time that I'm going to check it. Whenever I'm free, whenever I'm ready to take a break, I look at my messaging, and that's it. I'm not going to be reading voice memos. I'm going to be looking at bullet points, and etc. So that's the most important piece of this. Your phone right here. This guy is going to be the death of you. For your phone, the rules for this is all team communication goes through Slack or Discord, which means you need to respond on your computer. That's the most important thing. You got to get off your phone as much as possible. Now, if you are going to use your phone, you have to use what's called focus mode. Let me show you this. So on your iPhone, it's in your settings. This is what it looks like. Basically, I have a work focus mode. It's active from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And what focus mode does is it only allows 4 people who I choose that can reach me during the day. That's my mom, my dad, my girlfriend, and my business partners. Other than that, I have 3 apps that can notify me: Slack, Discord, and Google Calendar. That's it. I do not want any other distractions coming in. No outside calls or text. No, nothing, none of that is coming through unless I check. By your phone not lighting up, this will limit the amount of times that you pick it up. And if you can't stop picking your phone up, then you need to put it in another room. That's critical. Your phone is your worst enemy. All right, so once you've mastered your phone, you got that all set up. So the email is another gold mine for a ton of time wasting. So I look at it about 1 time per day at noon Eastern. Sometimes I don't even look at it per day anymore. I probably haven't looked at it in a week unless someone texts me and tells me to look at it. But basically, if you have timely emails coming through, like, TC stuff or, deals falling through or whatever, you should have your assistant ping you with that important information to you in Slack. However you want to set it up, you shouldn't be looking in your email because there's tons of other stuff that you're just going to get lost in and start replying, and it's a waste of time. And ideally, you can train your assistant on what to reply. This is how I optimize my email to where I pretty much never look at it anymore, because if it's important, my team's going to send it to me in Slack or Discord. And that's just the bottom line. All right. So meetings is another really important topic, because meetings are a lot of times not even important or not necessary. So the way that I pretty much limit any meeting that needs to take place, unless it's the changing high leverage task where if we need more leads, all we do is get more leads, I will have meetings about that because that's high leverage. If it's not about that, then more than likely it does not need to be a meeting. So the way that I do this is every meeting I take has an agenda. And most of the time when the agenda is presented, it can be solved over SMS, voice memo, or a Loom video in 5 minutes or less. That's just the reality. If it can't be solved in that amount of time, then create a resource so that in the future that it's just, hey, here's the resource, go to it. Don't worry about it for anyone else who's new. Most of the time you'll be surprised that that's it. The way that I handle this, someone just asked me for a meeting, is I just reply, hey, can you send me what you'd want to talk about on the call? And they send it to me. And then if it's worthy of a call, boom, we'll hop on a call. If it's not, I just reply with a voice memo or with a text or a Loom video, and it's pretty much handled. And that's it. So instead of taking an hour, it takes like 3 to 5 minutes. Complex problems. Now, this is a scenario where if someone comes to you with a complex problem that just can't be solved over SMS, voice memo, or Loom, here's how I handle it, because typically you can train your team to come up with a solution for you so that you don't have to hop on meetings later. And it's all by empowerment through leadership. A couple of good books on this are The Dichotomy of Leadership, Multipliers, and 5 Dysfunctions of the Team. Also, Good to Great's a fantastic amazing book as well. But anyways, complex problems. Someone comes to you with an issue that they can't solve. That's not acceptable. Make them come to you with a solution for the problem that they present. So that's just the expectation you need to set with your team. Someone keeps bringing me problems and you just keep answering them for them, then they're not, and they don't have to think about it. Of course they're not going to think about it. So you have to make sure you set the expectation. Hey, if you have a problem, I need you to make sure that when you send it to me, I'm more than glad to help you solve this problem, but I need to see that you've thought about it and put some thought into a solution and send that to me first. Because ultimately I want you to be able to make your own decisions and have full autonomy. That's what I'm telling them. So obviously, like at this point, let's assume that they sent you a solution. If the solution won't fully work, what you want to do is you want to ask them a question about a scenario that's going to break their solution. So I'm not going to say, hey, no, that won't work. Do this. I'm going to say, hey, what if this happens? What are you going to do? Or something like that. And then when they answer that, they're going to realize, oh shit, my solution's not going to work. So what they do now is that their answer is going to be the full solution to the problem that they're trying to solve. And then that's pretty much it. That's the general gist. Obviously, if they can't come up with a solution based on you asking them their question, you might have to lead them in the right direction, but you shouldn't be telling them exactly what to do for good employees. Now, let's say you have team members who can't solve these complex scenarios, because that happens. Basically, in my opinion, if someone's making more than 60K per year, they should be able to solve these at like an 80% rate or more. If they're making 40 to 60K a year, probably around 50%. They're making less than 40K per year. You will have to train them a lot. That's just the reality. I mean, at the end of the day, like it depends on what role this person's playing in your business. But if they're like a director role or a C-level role, then they need to be like a CEO of their own team. And they should be having like a 90 to 90% solve rate. If they're not having a 90% solve rate on these complex problems, get someone new. And in all honesty, like having staff that's US based that makes less than 40K a year, it's probably just not even worth it. I would just go the virtual assistant route. So obviously if you're doing virtual assistants, top range, I'd say more than $12 an hour. It's probably going to be roughly around that 70-80% completion rate, or around that 70-80% solve range. The middle would be maybe $7 to $12 per hour, and the bottom would be like less than $6 an hour. Again, maybe cold callers is like the lowest you go for at $6 an hour. But again, the lower you pay someone, the more you're going to manage them, and you just get what you pay for. That's just the reality of it. So that's why actually, like when you're scaling, like the most important metric you're looking at is like revenue per employee. Because think about it, if your revenue per employee for your company is like, let's just say 200. So let's say you make $2 million, you have 10 people in your team. $2 million a year, 10 people in your team, it's 200K revenue per employee. Well, you got marketing on that. So let's just go ahead and knock off say a 5x return. So you spend a bunch of money on marketing, all this other stuff, right? Your margin, if you pay someone on average 50 grand per employee, is going to be pretty low on 2 million. Like you're going to be less than 50% margin. And at 50K a year average pay per employee, you're not going to have an amazing team. If you can average paying people 80 to 100, then you're going to have a really, really good team who you don't need to manage at all. So that's why getting your revenue per employee high is so important, because it allows you to just backfill your staff with way better team members that ultimately allow you to do way less work and have way better people on your team who are solving these complex problems. So that's just a whole side note, but that's why this is such an important piece of business. And then like some other people who I've worked with in our programs or whatever, basically ask, so like, what if someone just needs more training? Well, I would answer this in a specific way. Like if you have to teach someone how to solve every single problem that they bring you, how do you scale? And you can't is the answer. You need to make sure that the people in your team are able to solve complex problems so that you don't have to. Because ultimately, like if all you do is solve every business problem, you're going to basically just build the whole business. So you might as well not even pay these people. But if you want to do it right, you get great people on your team who can solve problems for you in ways that you would never think about doing it, which is all through leadership and hiring. So that's the most important piece. So make sure that you are very particular with how these things are going. And like, for a good example of like, I just onboarded someone onto, Level Up. And just for like an example that's a little bit further to beat this point home is I just onboarded a new client into Level Up, and their closer was closing at 2%. Was their close rate. So obviously 2% is not great. And then out of those 2%, the actual business owner was closing those deals. So this guy who was closing the deals was absolutely horrendous. And by replacing that closer, well, I'm sure you can guess that business is probably going to 5x. So it's just like small stuff like that. You just can't let your standard for performance and for what your team does. It's like if you can perform at X standard, you should expect X standard, because the lowest standard that you accept from other people is going to be the standard that everyone falls to. And that's a Tony Robbins quote. And one last thing from a leadership perspective, because that's really what that last point is just all leadership. And I got this from Jocko Willink, from the Dichotomy of Leadership, is he said, if someone's solution is going to work, let them do it, even if it's not how you would do it, because that's going to empower them to do it more and more and more. And it's also going to help them learn and get better at creating better solutions over the long term. All right, cool. So we went over meetings. Let's go into creative avoidance. And this is really just a discipline piece for yourself. And ultimately, the only thing I can say for you is you got to tell that voice in your head that's telling you not to do your work just to shut up. It's going to happen every single day. In reality, you have to make the choice to do the hard thing. Because if you're deciding between something hard and something easy, and you're not just automatically doing the easy thing, then subconsciously you know you have to do the hard thing. So give yourself a reward for doing the hard work. Listen to more David Goggins, and then do more hard shit. That's why I run ultras, which just means any run that's longer than 26 miles. So I've run multiple 50 milers and have biked 200 miles across Colorado, all kinds of crazy stuff. That's why I do cardio. So just why I push myself physically. Because if you can push yourself physically, then mentally it's like cake, right? I just sit here and have to type on a computer screen for a little bit longer. It's nothing. So that's why you need to do hard stuff. And it could be anything, but just choose the hard thing more. And that's how you're going to eliminate creative avoidance. So the last thing that causes switch tasking is just simply not even finishing the tasks you were doing. So for example, when I was writing this outline, I wrote it and then I couldn't finish it. And literally what happened is I completely rewrote it because I lost my train of thought and I didn't know how to do it. So it took me an extra hour and a half to basically put this together, which cost me a lot of time. So not finishing something completely costs you more than moving on to the next task. Basically what I mean is by doing less, it's way more if more is better. And what I mean by that is by doing less task, it's better than doing more task at almost complete. So less is more if less is better, is basically what I'm saying. So anytime I'm doing a changing task or doing any task in general, I'm going to make sure I give myself 2 times the amount of time that I estimate to do the task. So if I think it's going to take me an hour, I give myself 2 hours to do it. And then what happens if I finish that task early? Well, I'm going to go and have some free time. I might walk my dog across the block. I might go and deep dive the CRM. I might plan my next task. I might just move right on to my next task. It just depends on whatever I want to do, because you need to reward yourself for getting the big things done, the big levers pulled very, very well. The last thing you need to do in order to make sure you get more tasks done and pull those big levers is you need to carve out at least 2 4-hour uninterrupted blocks per week. So that means you need 8 hours of uninterrupted time per week to work on the business with no distractions so that you can complete your number 1 constraint during this time. So that means put your phone away. It means don't respond to Slack. Close all your tabs. Leave one tab open on the tab that you're working on. And that's it. It could be Saturday morning. It could be Sunday night. It could be Monday night. It could be whenever. You just need to make sure this time is there for you. And it's a time that you can really push a lot of big blocks forward. And so what I want to leave you with is business isn't simple. It's not easy. But if you do more high value work, you become a more high value individual. Thank you.